Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today, I'm answering the question that I'm getting asked more and more, especially with some changes that have been happening recently to the game. That question is, why are you still playing this game? Now, these questions have been cropping up quite a bit recently because, well, I've been on a bit of a negative tear recently with especially this week's and last week's videos on many a topic, and that is the fair question to be asked, especially when I take a second and look back at what I've been putting out for the past week or so. And, I mean, hey, there has been a lot of changes recently that are quite frustrating to say the least. I will be streaming tonight, by the way, on the channel and on Twitch if you want to come out and catch me live. We'll be playing from around 5 p.m. U.S. Central Time to around 8 p.m. U.S. Central Time tonight, again here on the channel and on Twitch if you want to catch me live there. Just remembering to plug that right here at the beginning of the video. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. Yes, I have been on a bit of a negative tear recently, but there have been some truly frustrating things happening that I'm sure most of you are aware of. Like we've seen, Wargaming's gone completely full bore with the whole hybrid ship concept. We got the American hybrid line that has just come out in full release and is, well, quite popular if you haven't caught a game at tier 8 on up recently. So that means that there'll definitely probably be more in the future. And matchmaking in general is a absolute mess right now. I don't know if you've played around tier 6 and have managed to be one of the lucky players that have gotten in a double CV double submarine game, or even a double CV triple submarine game like what's featured on this channel in the past week or so. Or if you've been one of the ones that have unfortunately been in a match where for some reason Wargaming's matchmaking doesn't take into account the fact that that battleship in queue, that Louisiana, Delaware, or Nebraska, are hybrid ships. That was completely wrong English, wasn't it? But yeah, that's okay. And you might be on that team that is facing 3 Nebraskas or 3 Louisianas when you don't have a single hybrid ship on your side, despite those 3 Nebraskas, Louisianas, or Delawares not even being in a division together. That is truly frustrating because that side has a huge advantage over your side now. Why hasn't that been fixed yet? I don't know. And more super ships keep getting announced, like with the Super Petropavlovsk and the Super Conqueror that were announced a couple of weeks ago. Super ships that make tiers like Tier 9 truly frustrating to play, since Tier 9 ships were never designed to face these Tier 11 super ships. And of course, yeah, that's super frustrating to go up against. And submarines, of course, still need more tweaks. I believe that they're pretty close to being okay-ish. But there's 2 main issues that I still have with submarines that so far haven't seemed to have been addressed or haven't been announced that they're looking at fixing these problems, like the hydrophone effect still being too short. They did recently, well, I say recently, but before their recent release of the submarine class in game, they did extend the duration time of the hydrophone effect. If you guys don't know what that is, that's that little white icon that appears above where the submarine last pinged from. If you're in the middle of doing something, like you are many a time when a submarine pops up, you get pinged. A lot of times by the time you turn your camera, even if you turn it like the second you get pinged, it's already dissipated. Now, I'm not saying it needs to sit up for like 2 minutes or anything like that, but another second or 2 I feel like would be a much more appropriate time for such effect. And the fact that submarines still at periscope depth can rock and roll at the upper 20 knot range of speeds, which doesn't make any sense. Now I understand not cutting them down to like their 10 or 13 knot speed at periscope depth, but you know, it should be at least in the low 20s, upper teens maybe, but they shouldn't be rocking and rolling at still almost 30 knots at periscope depth. That's absolutely ridiculous for the benefits they get in the reduction of spotting. So yeah. And of course, we've very recently got the soft reintroduction of CVs into clan battles, with the Louisiana being able to participate in the last week and change of clan battles. A class that was super frustrating, that's been removed for quite some time from clan battles, has now suddenly been softly reintroduced with the Louisiana in the last week and a half of clan battles. Now, truth be told, the Louisianas haven't been as prominent as I thought they were going to be, and besides spotting benefit that they give, which is absolutely tremendous in terms of striking capabilities. Besides, of course, finishing off a low health shipper here and there, it doesn't really seem to be that powerful as, of course, a full-on CV would be, but it's still a soft introduction of the class into a mode that I don't have very fond memories of, and I'm sure many veteran players don't have fond memories of either. So that all has been happening in the last week and a half, 2 weeks in the game, and yeah, that has definitely been reflected in the videos that I've been producing, which of course leads many of you to ask, why do I still play? Well, there's one simple answer to that, and that's no one else does this very niche genre as well as wargaming does. They have a formula, and it works incredibly well, even with all the stuff they've been dumping on top of it. Well, for starters, like I said, there's not a lot of competition in this genre. In your early 20th century naval combat, early to mid 20th century naval combat genre, there's really not that many big names here, and really it's two. You have Wargaming with World of Warships, you have Gaijin with War Thunder and War Thunder Naval. Now, War Thunder Naval isn't exactly there yet. They're starting to flesh it out with, large capital ships and things like that, and it's a completely different style from World of Warships. War Thunder Naval leans more towards the simulator side of things, and if you guys have seen my War Thunder Naval videos, it's certainly interesting, and there are very much aspects about War Thunder Naval that I do enjoy, very much so, and I think they're neat mechanics. I think the aiming, once you get a hang on it, it's very intuitive, and it starts to, kind of feel right now that I've been playing it for quite some time. But it's not exactly a very easy game to just kind of pick up and play like World of Warships is. It's very easy to come home from work, pop onto World of Warships, pop into a few quick battles real quick, have a good time, and then go on about your day. Or have a bad time too, given the way some things have been developed in the game. And plus too, like, the scale, the feeling of the ships, the time when things go appropriately in World of Warships just feels better than War Thunder Naval, and good. Like, I like that DDs feel like these fast ships that, blaze around the map, that you can turn on a dime, they're super maneuverable. I like that. I like that battleships feel, big and heavy, and the way they feel in World of Warships just feels good. But if you go over to War Thunder Naval, even like the smallest boat in War Thunder Naval feels far less maneuverable than the biggest boat in World of Warships. So they just have the formula down well. It's the right balance between arcade and realism. And yes, it leans very, very heavily on the arcadey side of things. It's more like, if you ever go to a movie based upon some historical event, they'll have a disclaimer at the beginning, or a stinger at the beginning that says, inspired by true events. Those types of movies take inspired by and run with it. Like, they're not very accurate. They're more there for the action and for the flash of whatever happened, rather than the actual historical event. You go to a movie and you see a based on historical events, that tends to be a little bit closer to what actually happened. It's more historically accurate. It may not be as flashy and Hollywoody, however you want to say that, as the inspired by movie, but it's more historically accurate. It's more tamed. I see World of Warships as the inspired by thing. They take the historical parameters of the ships, and they try to fit them in game as best as they can, but they prioritize gameplay over historical accuracy in a lot of cases. Of course, with like everyone's favorite example, the speed of submarines. Submarines in this game are incredibly fast, much faster than they ever were in real life. Why? Because if they had their historical speeds, they'd be useless. And I know many of you are probably typing right now, good! I wish they did. So, yeah, and when you do that, and you prioritize the gameplay over historical accuracy, or the technical aspects that War Thunder likes to, kind of hold up, you get a game that feels good, the scale feels right. If you haven't seen War Thunder Naval either, that scale is still more shrunken down than like a real life scale, but You're fighting pixels at times in War Thunder Naval, and that's not that fun. In World of Warships, it's much closer. So they have that core gameplay that just feels right, and it flows right when things do go right. Now, one big complaint that you've heard me say many times recently is that that flow hasn't been happening a lot recently. There's been games at higher tier where no one wants to push up. The games stay at long ranges for extended periods of time, or they're over in 5 or 4 minutes, rather than the 10 or 15 minutes that the games definitely feel like used to last back in the day. And by back in the day, I mean like more than 2 or so years ago. And that's another thing too, like War Thunder Naval games can and do go on for 40 minutes at times. I know, as someone who's been doing, a bi-weekly War Thunder Naval video for the past year now, they got some long games. When I say I want a game to last longer, I don't mean a 40-minute match for one game. I mean, yeah, like the 10 or 15-minute match that we used to get normally. That's where the sweet zone feels like, at least in World of Warships. And two, yes, there are there alternatives out there that aren't Wargaming's World of Warships or Gaijin's War Thunder Naval, but the other alternatives are like Chinese like bootleg games that are like blatant World of Warships or War Thunder rip-offs, or games that the communities just really aren't there. Like, World of Warships has an active community. It's not a very large community, especially like the grand scheme of like video game communities, but it's active. You don't have to go into like some forum to find like the 7 guys that are still playing the game, unless you're playing World of Warplanes. Like, there's plenty of YouTubers, Twitch streamers, active communities all over the internet that you don't have to really go digging for. And that's awesome, and definitely, of course, helps out newer players and such, rather than just kind of being stuck with a, well, what the hell do I do here kind of situation that you see some of these other smaller rip-off or games that are just kind of getting started. And I truly do hope that like some of these small projects that are starting do grow into large competitors for World of Warships. Why? Because competition will finally maybe light a fire under some of the devs and make them realize, hey, if, a large part of our community is saying that we don't like this, and they keep saying it for, a couple of years about problem XYZ, maybe we should look at fixing that problem, like the matchmaking, submarine balance, maybe finally, change the way that plane spotting is affected. Of course, we know that they'll move heaven and earth before they implement 2D spotting for CVs, but that's what's going on right now. But that's why I still play, because as frustrating as a lot of these matches that we have nowadays are, every now and then I still do get a couple of really good matches that are great. I have a blast. It makes the Night of Pain worth it almost, and that's why I keep playing, because I love the game. I hope that the devs really listen to the community in the upcoming year, because I think this year is going to be a very important year for the game. Because we have the full launch of submarines. We're getting several lines this year, at least from what we've seen. Hybrids have come out, and super ships have come out and are coming out at a constant rate now. So this is where the game's really going to be shifting into this new thing that the devs have going for them, or have going on in their heads at least. So that's why I keep playing. The core gameplay is excellent, and, well, we'll see what happens this year. So guys, let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Friday, wonderful weekend. Make sure to come check us out on Twitch here tonight, and on YouTube here tonight from 5 p.m. U.S. Central Time till 8 p.m. U.S. Central Time. Hope you guys have a great weekend. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.